Hey everybody, welcome back to Winamac Hockey. In today's video, we are talking about the New Jersey Devils. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Dom and I am joined by Jake and Matt. And today, like I said, we're talking about the New Jersey Devils, a team that had a bit of a rough season. So first, let's hop into part one here, the season recap. The New Jersey Devils finished 27, 46, and 9, which is good for 63 points. And their goal differential was a minus 59. Not great. Not great by any means. But there's a silver lining to this. They have the second overall pick, and they have about $25 million in cap space, according to Cap Friendly, which we can all trust. So, fellas, what was it like for New Jersey this season? They struggled a lot, obviously. You guys think it was an offensive problem, a depth problem, goaltender problem, or a little bit of everything? Jake, I'll come to you first.
Well, I think for one, they had some injury problems. That mixed with some uncertainty in goal. I think that this was a down year for Mackenzie Blackwood, and they've got a lot of young guys. Maybe they need to take a look at the coach and say, you're not coaching our young guys well enough, and the chemistry's not there for this young team. So maybe they take a look there, they make some changes. I'm not sure, really.
Matt, what are your thoughts?
I think it had a lot to do with the fact they had a little bit of issues with goaltender. I mean, they played 5 goaltenders during the season. That pretty much tells you what type of issues they had. And I think along with that, their defense was just atrocious. They had a lot of offensive defensemen out there that were just not meshing well together, where they were getting in a lot of shootouts, and they were losing a lot of those shootouts because their defense couldn't stop the puck. So, I mean, their offense could score. There's no doubt about that. They have a good scoring offense, but their defense needs a reworking of major proportions.
Yeah, I will mention, for their standings, to have a minus 59 goal differential isn't bad. So to your point there, Matt, they were losing in shootouts for sure, because teams around their caliber were in the minus 70 goal differential range. So that's pretty significant difference there. So along with the season, we know it didn't go as well as they would have liked it to. But let's talk about some of the players that really had good years despite the team's poor performance. So, Matt, who do you think was the most valuable player for them this season?
Well, I think the obvious one has to be Jesper Bratt. I mean, the dude led the team scoring this season, which I don't think a lot of people saw coming. I think, if anything, you were thinking more from Nico Hischier or even a Dougie Hamilton coming up after the big signing that they had with him, or even a Jack Hughes to emerge. And one thing's for sure is that Bratt can score. The guy can definitely score. He had over 26 goals this year. He's a sniper that they can finally build around. I mean, it looks like from the looks of it, they don't have many good wingers on this roster. So the fact they got production from him shows something in the works for that. But he was a really good player for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of came out of nowhere too. Jake, how about you?
So I'm going to go with Jack Hughes here, because he had 56 points in 49 games. That's over a point per game. But what the real mind-blowing stat is, get this, 0 penalty minutes. He did not take a single penalty in those 49 games. So I don't know if he's allergic to the box. Maybe the box keeper guy has some grudge against him or something. He just doesn't go there, and that's crazy. Not a single penalty. That's the kind of leader you want on your team, and that's Jack Hughes.
Yeah, speaking of leaders, Matt, you mentioned him. Nico Hischier is my pick. I think the young guy, you don't see a lot of young captains really in the league, but this guy at 23 years of age has really stepped up for the New Jersey Devils, and he really had a bounce back year. In 70 games, he put up 21 goals, 60 points total, and on this team that was a minus 59 goal differential, he was a minus 1. So I'd say that's a pretty darn good season for him and for that team. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think he's really stepped into a leadership role. But can we talk about the number of high picks this team has already had? like Jack Hughes was a #1 pick. Nico Heischer was a #1 pick. We'll talk about it later, but they've got the #2 pick. Like, this team has been gifted, and we need to start to see some results.
Yeah. So speaking of results, let's hop into part 2 here, fellas, the offseason. All right. So what does this team need to do this offseason? Obviously, they're trying to build around some young core guys. They have the 2nd overall pick. What do they need to do? They have $25 million in cap they can spend. Who are they letting walk? Who are they bringing back? And do you think they make any big moves in free agency? Jake?
Okay, so first, let me say I don't appreciate Matt attacking the defense. They have PK Subban and Dougie Hamilton. So what? They're 55 years old. They're elite, and it's entirely Mackenzie Blackwood's fault that this team was bad. I'm putting it all on Blackwood, and so I think they go out and they solve the real problem, and that's in goal. And I think they look at a guy who's about to walk right out of the first round and into New Jersey, and that's Jack Campbell. He's going to be a free agent. They're going to welcome him into New Jersey, and then he's going to have 82 shutouts next year with the New Jersey Devils.
That's pretty bold there, pal. In all reality, I think Jack Campbell could be a good asset for them to pick up, solve that goaltending issue. Matt, what do you think? Do they go after a guy like Jack Campbell, or do they go a little bit younger and a guy like Billy Husso?
I mean, they could go in a lot of different ways at goaltender. I think that's definitely on the table for them to grab a goaltender. But I was looking at it. I do think defense was a huge issue this year for them. I will stick to my guard on that one. And I have one guy who's kind of off the radar, but had a really good season in LA, and Oli Mata. He's the guy I think you and me know very well, playing for the Blackhawks. Had a really good season, and he's definitely the definition of a defensive defenseman. I mean, the dude had 8 points in 66 games, and he played 20 minutes a night. Yet he was a +17. The guy is a really good player. He's 27 years old. And I think what they need is a perfect dude, kind of like what Cal McCarr has and Devin Chase there in Colorado. They need that good defensive defenseman to sit next to Doug Hamilton, kind of like what Jacob Slavin did with him in Carolina. And I think a guy like Oli Mata can do that for him. I think he did that really well there in LA, and I think he can reciprocate that here in New Jersey.
Yeah, you know who else is familiar with Oli Mata? The bench. But let me tell you about what they really need, and that is the New Jersey Devils native, Johnny Gaudreau. And he is about to walk out of Calgary, just like Jack Campbell. His team couldn't get it done, and guess what? New Jersey wants him. So he's going to go boost that offense, and it's going to be that Jack Hughes or Nico Heischer and Johnny Gaudreau tandem, and they're going to light up the league.
With $25 million cap, I mean, theoretically, they could bring in Johnny Hockey, Jack Campbell, and Oli Mata. That cap could definitely make that happen with some room to spare. But with that, is there anyone like an RFA or any UFAs that they have that you think that might be worth bringing back? Does anyone jump out at you?
Well, the first guy that I look at is John Gillies. I think it's between him or Andrew Hammond for the backup role. So if it's me, I keep John Gillies masterclass, and maybe Mackenzie Blackwood goes, but regardless, John Gillies, you have to re-sign him.
Matt?
Well, definitely not him. I mean, he was one of the 5 goaltenders that was pretty much a revolving door this season for them. So if you thought Mackenzie Blackwood was bad, oh my God, John Gillies. But I think for sure it's got to be Jesper Bratt. I mean, the dude led the team in points this year, and I already talked about how good he was this year. And the dude's an RFA. He's going to get paid. So, and at 23 years old, he's going to get a big extension. Is it going to be as big as Jack Hughes? I doubt it. But I think he's definitely some guy they got to look at because you can't lose him. They're very weak at that winger spot. And if they lose him, they're kind of screwed because they pretty much lose all their scoring on the wing. I mean, when you have to rely on Andres Johansson to be your top left winger, you're going to have a little bit of issues there. So I think bringing him back is going to be huge.
Yeah. What kind of deal do you think he might get if obviously not as big as Jack Hughes with the 8x8, but what do you think that he might be getting paid over there in New Jersey?
I'm thinking probably more of along the lines like normal winger money, so around like 5, maybe 6 mil. If they want to get him to a long-term deal, I think that's probably what they're going to have to do. Maybe like a 6x6 or something like that, or like a 7x6, or maybe a 7x5 because they're giving him term. But you definitely have to sign a guy like that. And at 23 years old, if you want him long-term, and I think they should want him long-term, they're going to have to open the checkbook up a little bit.
You know who I'm looking at? I'm looking at this list of RFAs, and there's a big name that sticks out to me, and that's Miles Wood. And I think the real reason this team went downhill, they traded Scott Wedgwood, and they broke up the Blackwood, Wedgwood, Miles Wood connection. And if it's me, I do everything in my power as the GM of the Devils to reacquire Wedgwood as your backup goalie. And then I look at the Winnipeg Ice of the WHL, and I bring in Jack and Smallwood. And you have the Wood connection. And that's how you end up in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Bold take. Bold take. Any other thoughts of what they can do this offseason with RFAs, free agents, and trades?
Yeah, I can tell you one guy that I get rid of this offseason. There's one guy on that defense that I think did a bad job. And quite frankly, I'm a little embarrassed that Matt didn't mention him. And that's Jonas Siegenthaler, the worst defender in the NHL. And he has been for years. I don't know what that guy has on the GM of New Jersey, but how is he on that team? He's not an NHL defender. That's all.
Okay. All right, fellas, are we ready to hop into part 3, next season's preview?
I think we're ready.
All right, let's do it.
As well.
Next season preview. Where do you guys see the New Jersey Devils finishing in the NHL next season? Matt, I'll come to you first here.
Dead last. Maybe not in the NHL, but definitely in the division. I think as much as there's Buffaloes rolling around, or as much as they had the issues that they had, and there's going to be, it seems like Arizona is going to be terrible, or there's going to be Buffaloes rolling around there, even Chicago, it seems like at this point. So, like, they're not going to be dead last, but in the division, there's no way they're competing, especially when they're just not deep at all at any position. Unless they just go out and just open the checkbook and bring in every top free agent there is and have the greatest draft maybe ever, I don't see them competing this year. They just don't have enough on this roster.
Yeah. Jake, similar thoughts here?
So I see this as being sort of like how the West was this year, where it was like you had so many positions locked in, but then there were some teams fighting for like one spot that was still available. I see that being a situation in the East next year where, you know, you have the Bruins who might take a big step backwards with Bergeron leaving, with getting rid of their coach. And so I think that the Hurricanes, Rangers, Penguins, and Capitals are all better than what the Devils will be. But who's saying that the Metro can't take 5 spots? The Central does it every year. If they can do that, I think that the Devils are better than the Islanders, Blue Jackets, and Flyers. So it's possible, Devils fans. It's possible.
And especially with that, the second overall pick, that could be huge with whatever they decide to do with that. But yeah, I am definitely agreeing with you guys on that. I feel like they're going to take another step up. I would hope, but I think that they will, especially the 25 mil and the second overall pick. There's no excuse not to take a step up when you're in this scenario. But I don't know if I see him getting into the playoffs next season. I think it might take another season. They got to get their goaltender situation figured out. And until they do that, I don't have a whole lot of faith in that team. I just don't. But this offseason could definitely change my mind. We'll have to see.
You're telling me, Dom, that say they get Johnny Gaudreau, do you think that he could get them there? Do you think they're that close to the playoffs, or do you think that's still not enough?
Well, the turn with Calgary is interesting because they went, from missing the playoffs to winning their division. So, I mean, but also Calgary has a great coach. Obviously, he won, the Jack Adams this year. So, proven guy. But does New Jersey have that? I don't think so. Can Johnny Hockey definitely bring some life into that squad? Yeah, absolutely. Take them all the way to a playoff spot? That's asking a bit much for one guy, in my opinion.
I think that's a fair take.
All right, guys, are there any other thoughts as we get ready to conclude this video?
There is a trade that I saw online, and as you are both Blackhawks fans, I've got to ask you. I saw it as the second overall pick being traded from New Jersey to the Blackhawks in exchange for Alex DeBrincat. Do you accept that as a GM of the Blackhawks?
No.
Matt, you want to take this one?
No. Next question.
Yeah, I also think I would decline that. And somebody in that same comment section made a great point. You hope to get an Alex DeBrincat with that second overall pick. And quite honestly, if I'm the Blackhawks, I'm not looking to trade DeBrincat anyways. But from the rumors, it seems like that's the position they're in for some reason. So, we'll have to see what happens. If I'm the Devils, I love that. And I would happily give away that second overall pick for that. And, you bring in Johnny Hockey and Alex DeBrincat in one offseason, and you better believe they're in the playoffs next year.
You would certainly hope. But they're not getting Alex DeBrincat. So sorry. Sorry about that, fellas. All right, guys. Hey, so that wraps up this video about the New Jersey Devils. And New Jersey fans, our hearts go out to you. You guys are getting better. We'll see you in the playoffs, hopefully in a couple seasons. Thanks for tuning in to Winamac Hockey. We'll see you next time.